Thanks, guys. Can we bring the panelists up? It would be great if we can get folks up and in place. And before he runs away, I just want to stop for a moment and congratulate Eddie Avila and everyone involved with Rising Voices. I think everybody here can agree that of all the wonderful and moving things we've seen on stage today, two of the most amazing things we've seen are this fantastic project coming out of Mexico and that absolutely amazing project coming out of Kyrgyzstan. We do a ton of different things at Global Voices. Sometimes it's about human rights, sometimes it's about media. I think what we do with Rising Voices is some of the most amazing and inspiring work we do. So we just get a round of applause for Rising Voices. I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much. So while we bring people up to the stage, I just want to sort of set the scene for what this last conversation is about. And as you heard, the title of this last conversation is My Own Private Internet. And I think you guys, everyone today has been hoping that they could have their own private internet so we didn't have to share it with the other 300 people here and with everybody else in Cebu. I think it would have made it a lot easier for many of us to get through our day and to get our work done. But that's not actually what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was to send us back a little bit in time. We've heard from several of our friends from Cebu that, in fact, Cebu is the heart of the Filipino internet, that it's been where the first connection was made back in 1994. And so I want to take you back those 20 years to think about what some of us thought of and hoped for the internet 20 years ago. And I think for many of us, we hoped that what the internet would do is make the world a little bit more like one of these gatherings that we're having here today with Global Voices. We really hoped, I really hoped 20 years ago, that what it would mean that we could get news and information and opinion and music and culture from every corner of the world is that we would often be hearing voices of people we'd never heard before. We would be hearing from new friends, we would be making new connections. And while this is all possible, what's actually come out of the internet over the last 20 years is often something very different. What's happened is, because now everyone can raise their voice, we're in a constant war of attention. Not only do we have different media outlets competing for us to pay attention, not only are different commercial brands asking us to pay attention, but all of us and all of those 40 million Filipinos on social media and the billions of people on social media around the world, we are all putting forward our voices and asking to be heard. And so what happens? What seems to be happening is that in many cases, the internet may actually have us listening more to people we already know, listening more to our family and friends. Think about something like Facebook. I'm going to assume that everybody in this room is on Facebook except for the smart people like Paula Goes who've opted out of it consciously. But for those of us who are on Facebook, we hear constantly from people who we know, who are in our families, who are in our neighborhoods. We could be hearing from people from all over the world, and maybe some of us are lucky enough that we do. But for many of us, we're hearing from the same people that we went to high school with. We're hearing from the same people we see every day. And this can even get very dangerous for us. For many of us, what we're sometimes seeing online is the same opinions over and over. And when we get those same opinions over and over, they tend to reinforce and strengthen our own opinions. So we saw this a little bit in the United States. Who you know can determine what you know about. You probably know that we had this very tragic shooting of a young man named Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. If you were African American, you knew about this online within 6 hours because it was very big news within the African American community. If you were white, you might not hear this for 2 or 3 days because it got very little mainstream media attention at first. And who you knew had a lot to do with what information you got. So what we wanted to reflect on here was this question of what it might mean that we're all living on our own little private internets. Is the internet giving us a broader view of the world or a narrower view of the world? Is the world becoming more like Global Voices or more like Facebook? And we've got an amazing range of people here to take this question on from different points of view. And what we've asked is for different Global Voices community members to reflect on this question, and also to reflect on this question in the context of Filipino media. So we're going to try to get a sense for what this might have meant for the Philippines as well. So I've asked people to speak for a couple of minutes on this question of, is the internet giving us more of a global view? How is it changing how our countries are represented to the world? How is it changing what the rest of the world knows about our countries? And I wanted to start this conversation by going far off to Madagascar. And so the first person that I wanted to introduce and bring to the stage is Lova Rakotomalala. He's a biomedical researcher, deeply involved with Global Voices Francophonie. He's someone who really in many ways connected Madagascar to the Global Voices community for the first time, and we've been grateful for his involvement ever since. Lova, we'd love to bring you up first.
Hello? Okay, it's working. Thank you, Ethan. And thank you, Cebu, for having us here. We've been having a great time. First, can I have a show of hands of people who can place Madagascar on the map? All right, I'm very happy to see this. Now, can I have a show of hands of people who knew that there was bubonic plague in Madagascar in 2014? Joey, you're cheating. You're Malagasy, so that doesn't count. Bubonic plague, that is pretty relevant information, we think. And if you're not looking for it, you probably don't know that that's what happened in Madagascar last year. And bubonic plague, really, that is so 40, 70. I mean, who still have bubonic plague these days? Anyway, I think that reflects quite well on how sometimes what Ethan was talking about, our internet is very much now isolated from what's happening in the rest of the world. Just like if you Google search Madagascar now, you would see that 2014 didn't go so well. The economy is stagnant. The 90% of the population lives with less than 90%. 90% of the population lives with less than $2 a day. We had 3 tropical storms, locust invasion, and the plagues. So I know we're not probably the only country in that case, but it's been a bit of a challenge. But just like here if in the Philippines you would only talk about the Philippines when the typhoon hits, that would not be fair for what Philippines stands for. And Madagascar is also so much more than its natural disasters. So what we would like Malagasy bloggers, what we've been trying to do through Global Voices and other channels is really symbolized by what's on the photo, if you can see it. So that was the last tropical storm that hit Madagascar. This was just 2 weeks ago. And after the tropical storm, because the structures of Madagascar are not suited for dealing with that, we get floods and hundreds of deaths for the last cyclone. And what we would like to share with the world is that Madagascar is actually about the citizens of the country helping each other out, moving to a shelter, to a safe place. It's basically that person, that guy in the back there smiling while pushing the people off to a safer place. So look for us on Global Voices. You have stories like that we'd like to share with you. But now, if you would allow me, I would like to switch gear a little bit. And I've been living in Paris for the past 4 years. And when the Charlie Hebdo attack happened on January 7, I was on the phone in the morning with my cousin, who works just 2 blocks away from where the attack took place. A few hours ago, clearly my social media network was flooded with pictures of I Am Charlie and a tribute to the fallen journalist. I was shocked as well, mostly because I had a book signed from Kabu, not Cebu, of one of the cartoonists that was killed that day, called Le Grand Duduche, and he signed a copy of my book, and now that part of my childhood is not here anymore. I will not go into the free speech aspect of it or the tolerance versus free speech, because there are people in this room that are better suited in talking about this than I am. But what I would like to engage with you with is in talking about how polarized the discussion has become. Because first, if I would just go by my timeline, it would be about all Je suis Charlie, I'm Charlie, and the tribute. And thank God for Global Voices, I had a more nuanced aspect of this issue, thanks to great pieces written by Joey and Watch about what happened at the same time. And I would really like for us to be able to, when we discuss issues that are a bit sensitive, to be able to engage each other in a conversation and not yell at each other, because what happened in the social media in France that didn't quite feel right was that many reporters sought after young people from the suburbs of Paris who are very rich in minorities. And they were looking for that quote that would say, well, maybe those journalists had it coming. And I think it's the media responsibility to, instead of looking for that quote, that thing that would just get us more polarized and more angry at each other, we need to instead look for the tagline, like the I Am Ahmed, the policeman who was killed that day protecting Charlie Hebdo, the I Am Baga, the Twitter hashtag, reflecting on what happened in the same week in Nigeria after the Boko Haram terrorist attack. Because we might be Charlie or not, in fact. We might say we are Charlie, but we are first and foremost all global voices. And I think that's where I'll end it. Thank you.
So, Luma, thanks so much for that. Don't give up the mic yet, because I just want to ask a quick question. What you gave here was really sort of a picture of looking for hope, sometimes even in the face of tragedy. So looking for who in Madagascar was trying to save people out of the floods, looking for a figure like Ahmed who was trying to save people in the world of Charlie Hebdo. And I think there's something really interesting about the idea of this journalism of hope. What's the most hopeful story that's come to you online over the many years that you've been online and sort of looking at this?
Well, I'm slightly biased, but Rising Voice is pretty close to,
So maybe tell us just for a moment about Fuku Club, because Fuku Club for me is actually one of my most hopeful stories.
Okay, Fuku Club was a Rising Voice project that was started in 2008 actually, and the idea was just to train students and young people in the words of blogging so that they could tell their story in their own words. It was a joint collaboration with people that are in the room, in fact, and people who are not in the room but who are very important for this. The Fuku Club then were mostly people who just were very interested in learning more things. We went to secluded places in Madagascar. Madagascar is about the size of England plus a bit of Netherlands, so you can get pretty isolated really quickly. The part that got quite interesting about Fuku was that in 2009 in Madagascar there was a coup, a military takeover, and things just went really bad. Really, I wanted to use other words, but I will not. Things went bad very quickly. The thing is, Madagascar doesn't have much of a international media presence on site, so people were trying to sort out what was going on in Madagascar, and the people who published online around that time was the bloggers that we trained. They were trained in blogging, not really journalism, but they did the best they could, and thanks to their reports, we could have a better understanding of what was happening at the time. And then we got calls from mainstream media, the Wall Street Journal did a piece on Fuku. CNN actually went there and interviewed a few of the guys. So that was nice. I mean, it was a sad part of the story in Madagascar in 2009, but that kind of gave us hope that young activists and young people could make a difference.
So thanks so much, Lova. I want to turn next to Mildred Galarpe. I had to look at her name tag because everyone who works with her calls her Red. So I had to make sure that I got the first name right. But she's the managing editor of our wonderful sponsor, the Sun.Star, and focuses on the website. She is a terrific and sort of creative thinker about how this really strong regional newspaper here in Cebu is using digital media to connect not just with people locally, but with Cebuanos around the world. And one of the things that I know that she wants to talk to today is the way in which the internet has allowed Cebu to sort of become a global Cebu and basically connect to its citizens no matter where they are in the world. So please welcome Mildred.
Maayong hapon. Magandang hapon. Good afternoon. Well, the question is the internet giving you a broader view of the world? Initially, the internet appears to be empowering. Anyone can have their opinion or say on anything. Consumers turn into producers. Everyone is an expert. And the local appears globally. The overload of information is overwhelming. I now have access to more books, journals, documentaries, and hear from a greater range of different voices about events of the world. It provides me better understanding of different cultures and people. But that's me, part of the 33 million Filipinos who is connected to the world through the internet. The remaining 67 million are still disconnected or choose to be disconnected. How do these people view the world? What is their view of the world? Well, I can never guess. Is the internet changing how the world views my country? Yes and no. When Filipinos ousted Ferdinand Marcos out of Malacanang through people power, Ferdinand Marcos was the Philippine president for 20 years. The world view of the Philippines has changed. The Filipinos can effect change peacefully. When Yolanda or Haiyan struck Central Philippines in 2013, the world adored Filipino resiliency, that despite losing a limb, a family member, and a home, a Filipino can still manage to smile and stand up. On the contrary, the world continues to view the Philippines as terror haven or unsafe to foreigners like you. Isolated problems in southern Philippines have painted an atmosphere of disarray and violence. I am partly guilty of this. My job as a journalist is to tell the world that isolated problems like bombings and kidnappings are not a normal occurrence in the 7,000-island Philippine archipelago. Let me share with you an experience of how the internet connected and disconnected families and communities. The Philippines is one of the top human resource exporter in the world. A 2012 census survey estimated about 2.2 million Filipinos work overseas. Homesickness is the #1 enemy of these Filipinos. In 2009, Sun.Star, the publishing company where I work with, started live streaming. We have been streaming, among so many others, the country's grandest festival, the Sinulog. I'm sure some of you witnessed this last weekend. The response from overseas Filipinos was simply overwhelming. The thank yous received kept flowing. Basically, every time we do live streaming, beside is a chat box. Filipinos abroad, they feel so thankful, saying, you know, thank you for bringing Cebu, instead of me coming home, it's us sending Sinulog to them because they cannot go home. There was this Filipina in New York, San Diego. She's been in San Diego for 20 years. She never got a chance to go home. The first time she witnessed the live streaming, she connected the connection to the widescreen TV, and she was crying. She was dancing with the kids, and she chatted us, thank you for bringing me home closer. You know, receiving these messages is just simply overwhelming. You know, you can, if you can bring a smile to somebody, that is something. You know, your work for the whole day live streaming is really nothing. So we feel that that is one area, the streaming, bringing activities like this to our Filipinos abroad is something. Connecting them back to home is one beauty of the internet. But I think the connection is not full. There is a disconnect. Because it's only us giving them, telling them about what's happening home. There is less information or about how our brother and sister Filipinos are doing in the foreign lands. How are they surviving? How do they cope up with cultural and religious differences? There are bits of information coming in, but it's not, the flow in information is not that constant. So this is where I think Global Voices can help us in this aspect. You have a great and big network worldwide. Maybe you can share by running feature stories about our brother and sister Filipinos in your countries and share how they're doing and coping with homesickness. We would gladly disseminate and share that information in the different platforms we have in our hands and the communities within our reach.
Mildred, don't give up the mic yet, because I want to ask you a question too, because that was so wonderful, and what a fantastic example of the ways in which the internet really can connect the world. We were talking about this yesterday over with your colleagues from Sun.Star, and you mentioned that during the live stream, people would call family members and tell them to go find the camera so they could stand in front of it and see them on the live stream. I thought that was fantastic.
There was one time that there was a religious procession, and an engineer from Saudi Arabia called the wife, why won't you go to this place where there's a cameraman standing in the middle of the road and look for that guy? And so the wife did. So then when he saw the camera, he was standing there in front of the camera and saying, and talking to the phone, saying, I'm here already, did you see me, did you see me? And you know, the husband, yes, my God, you look fat. And then, you know, our cameraman really got confused. What's wrong with this lady? Because every time he moves, the lady follows. What's wrong? So, we only knew that later when the husband sent us a message. And you know, the wife went to the office and says, oh, thank you. We were global stars at that short moment of time.
So thank you for that. I would also just say that homesickness can be a powerful force for good. I know that, in fact, our own Mang Palatino started blogging many, many years ago because he had many, many family members working overseas, and that's actually what got him started writing online. So it's really interesting to think about that as part of all of this. Next, I wanted to bring up Victoria Tinta, who has been our wonderful pioneering editor in Global Voices Aymara. Aymara is a language spoken by about 2 million people in Bolivia and Peru. It's wonderful and remarkable that we get the chance to bring content from all around the world to people who speak Aymara. I think it's at least as important that we get to bring content out of the Andes to the rest of the world. And it's really thanks to Victoria and her team that we get to do this. Victoria's going to speak in Spanish, and so I'm going to ask Violeta to translate for her. I'm actually going to introduce Violeta after to talk about her work, but we'll trade off that way.
Good afternoon. Aski haipukipantaki humanakataki. Yo les voy a hablar acerca de mi país, Bolivia, el internet, cómo está conectando o cómo se conectan las personas, si es lento o no es lento, el señal, cómo es, todo eso les voy a hablar de mi país, de Bolivia.
I'm going to speak about my country, Bolivia, and I'm going to explain you how the internet, the situation of the internet is there, how people can connect to each other through the internet, how fast or slow it is. That's what I want to tell you about today, about Bolivia, my country.
Internet es muy importante, es una red donde nos conecta a todos nosotros, las personas donde ni siquiera se conocen frente a frente o persona entre persona, y nos podemos conectarnos a través del internet y después conocernos también.
Internet is the place where we can meet people that we don't see face to face, and we can talk and we can discuss things even if maybe we will never meet.
Yo tengo un ejemplo muy grande donde en el año 2009, donde dos personas, antes de 2009, donde dos personas se han podido conectar a través del internet, Eddie Ávila y Rubén Hilari, dos personas, entre persona a persona no se conocían, pero ellos se han conocido a través del internet, mediante chat, Facebook, Gmail.
I want to tell you an example of two people. I cannot repeat the names. Two people that met through the internet, and they didn't meet in the physical world, but they could talk through Facebook and Gmail.
Y tengo bonita experiencia donde entre personas nos hemos podido reunirnos con el Eddie y Rubén y mi equipo, y a través de esas reuniones se ha podido crear el equipo Hackearu y el sitio Global Voices Aymara.
And another example that I want to tell you about is how we created Global Voices Aymara with the team, with Eddie and Ruben. It's called Yaki Ari, and that's one of my greatest experiences with the internet.
Y gracias al internet, este sitio Global Voices y Hackearu se ha podido crear las páginas donde nosotros, los jóvenes aymaras de allá de Bolivia, estamos difundiendo la lengua aymara a través de internet al mundo.
And it is thanks to the internet that we have been able to create this group where the community Aymara, we are working to help protect our language.
Yo recuerdo muy bien cuando nosotros, los jóvenes aymaras del equipo Hackearu, la mayoría somos migrantes de las provincias, y nosotros ya nos hemos ido a estudiar a la ciudad del Alto, a la universidad. Antes de ingresar a la universidad, cuando estábamos estudiando en la secundaria, casi la mayoría no usaba el internet, hasta mi persona no usaba, yo no entendía lo que es el internet, qué hay en el internet, todo eso.
Most of the people that are working in this group, Yaquiari, in this Aymara side, they come from the provinces in Bolivia. They don't come from the cities, and before they went to study to university, to the big cities, they were studying secondary high school or high school in their hometowns, and many of them they didn't have access to the internet.
Pero cuando ya estábamos estudiando en la universidad, empezamos a usar el internet porque el docente nos pedía trabajos de investigaciones, teníamos que hacer muchas cosas a través del internet, entonces ahí es donde hemos empezado a usar el internet y a crear Gmail, y hasta mi persona ha podido conocer lo que es Facebook, y las redes sociales más o menos, ¿no?
But of course, when we went to university, we had to start using the internet because we had to do the research and projects and all these things. And so through that experience, they discovered also the social networks like Facebook and others.
Y después de que hemos armado el equipo Hackearo en el año 2009, a partir de ese año nosotros formamos un equipo alrededor de 15 personas, donde nosotros hemos sido capacitados por las personas blogueros, por las personas que usan las redes sociales, Twitter, Facebook, Skype, y entonces nosotros hemos podido aprender y nosotros también estamos difundiendo, compartiendo a otras personas, transmitiendo lo que nosotros habíamos aprendido.
So since we created this site, Yakiari, in 2009, we have been learning through social media about how we can use the internet to help protect the language and the culture, and also to help explain to the world all the things that they learned in their hometowns.
Y lo que hace las características de Hackearo les voy a hacer conocer. ¿Qué es lo que hacemos como equipo Hackearo? Lo que hacemos es nosotros crearnos nuestros blogs personales o blog grupal y difundimos la lengua aymara de las comunidades, escribiendo las costumbres y otros. Entonces nosotros estamos compartiendo, y también estamos compartiendo a través de redes sociales, comentando, subiendo fotografías, pero comentando siempre en nuestro idioma, que es la lengua aymara.
What we do as a team of around 15 people is to create content either on blogs or collective blogs or on social media, and explain the cultural heritage and all those things that maybe are more difficult access for the international audience, and explain the habits and the cultural heritages in their hometowns.
Y desde hace 2 años estamos iniciando con un proyecto, pero el proyecto es todo de manera voluntaria, no está financiado. Es la traducción de plataforma de Facebook.
One of our projects is that started a couple of years ago, but we have no financial help, is to create an alternative platform similar to Facebook. I'm sorry, Victoria, I'm not sure I get this right. Can you explain it more?
La plataforma de Facebook estamos traduciendo al idioma aymara. En sí existe en inglés, español y otras lenguas, ¿no? Entonces,
okay.
Pero en aymara no existe. Es lo que nosotros estamos traduciendo. Hasta el momento tenemos un avance de 50%. Todas las palabras en total es 24,000 palabras, pero estamos en un 50% de avance.
We are translating Facebook to Aymara, and at the moment we have translated 50% of it. It's in total, it's around 24,000 words, but at the moment we are just in the middle of the work.
Y es muy interesante para nosotros. ¿Por qué todo esto estamos haciendo? ¿Por qué? ¿Con qué motivo? ¿Con qué objetivo? Lo que nosotros queremos es difundir la lengua aymara, porque allá en Bolivia hay casi cerca a 2 millones de hablantes de lengua aymara. Entonces la mayoría de las personas que son hablantes aymara, lengua hablantes, entonces ellos necesitan mucho lo que es del internet, porque en el internet hace 10 años, yo cuando estaba estudiando en la universidad no he podido ver muchos contenidos escritos en el internet, se encontraba vacío. Entonces por esa razón que nosotros estamos haciendo esto.
Why are we doing this? We're doing this to help create content in Aymara, in the internet, and we think that it's very important because there are close to 2 million Aymara speakers in Bolivia, and we think that it's really important that they have access to all these internet tools and in their own language.
Y lo que era la traducción de Facebook, la plataforma de Facebook Aymara, que estamos ahora traduciendo, el año pasado, en el mes de mayo, hemos difundido a través de un radio Aymara que es Radio San Gabriel.
Can you say that again?
Okay, I repeat it here. El año pasado nosotros habíamos difundido la noticia a través de una radio que se llama Radio San Gabriel, que es una radio aymara, y nosotros habíamos difundido con qué objetivo estamos haciendo, estamos traduciendo la plataforma de Facebook y para qué, por qué estamos haciendo, todo eso habíamos hecho conocer por ese medio. Y luego, escuchando el medio, vinieron muchos medios, ¿no? Medios televisivos, radios, periódicos, ¿no? Pero han venido muchos, ¿no? Para entrevistarnos, ¿por qué estamos haciendo todo? Tenían la curiosidad de saber.
So last year we had the opportunity to go to a radio station, an Aymara radio station called San Gabriel, and explain our project and explain why we are doing it and how are we doing it. And after that, we received a lot of attention, both from people and media outlets, and they wanted to interview us.
Y la noticia hasta dónde llegó, al mundo entero llegó, porque en otros idiomas también hemos podido ver que ellos habían traducido a otros idiomas. Hemos visto en muchos periódicos de otros países. Y eso es una gran alegría para nosotros, para el equipo, tanto para Aymara hablantes y así.
This information did not only reach Aymara speakers because it was translated to other languages. So we felt that we were really speaking to the world and we were telling the world about what we were doing and how important our languages was for us.
Victoria, una pregunta. ¿Qué es lo único que quiere que el mundo sepa acerca de los Aymara?
Ahí llego.
Should I translate the question?
What's the one thing that you want the world to know?
The question is, what's the one thing that she would like the world to know about the Aymara culture?
Bueno, tengo muchas cosas para contarles, pero el tiempo es muy corto también y en resumen yo les quería contar algo, lo que estamos haciendo del proyecto. Hasta el momento tenemos un proyecto llamado Web 2.0, Comunidad Hacker Aymara, y con eso lo que queríamos llegar es, estamos trabajando ahorita con una universidad enseñando sobre la tecnología y también enseñando la construcción de antenas Wi-Fi, porque en esa universidad hay internet Wi-Fi, pero la cobertura no llega a todo lado, sino que hay ciertas partes que llega y hay ciertas partes que no llega. Entonces es por esa razón habíamos propuesto ese taller de enseñar sobre la construcción de antenas Wi-Fi. Y ahorita estamos enseñando, dando talleres sobre la construcción de antenas Wi-Fi.
So one of the most important things that we are doing is that we are doing workshops to instruct us on certain areas on how to build Wi-Fi installations, because the internet doesn't reach, the network doesn't reach many parts of the country.
So we can get a sense of just how important the internet has been as far as connecting the Aymara people, and the huge efforts of constructing networks that have been important, and also this huge effort to try to translate Facebook into Aymara. So thinking about simply what it means to be able to be represented, to be able to use these tools. I want to go further in the conversation and now bring up Violeta Camarasa, who's going to, I think, challenge this question a little bit, that any of this is new. Any of these questions about who we pay attention to, what we pay attention to in new media is really new, or whether these are actually very old phenomena. She's a professor of global communication. She's absolutely the sort of person we want to ask this question of. She's also one of the leaders of the Civic Catalan team, but she's also very clearly a global citizen, because she's not a professor in Barcelona, she's a professor in Hong Kong. And when she writes on Global Voices, it's ranged from everything from writing about China also to writing about her native Spain. So please.
Thank you, David. Okay, so there are a couple of ideas I would like to share. They are not absolute ideas, it's just some ideas for reflection. First of all is that I am personally a bit tired of this approach to new media, or to all the phenomena that have to do with the internet as something new. Because in many cases they are not so new. And the only thing that is new is the tool, is the technology, but that doesn't really change what we are talking about, and what are the causes and the consequences, and the really important sides of each phenomenon. I think that if we would study and look, and I'm not saying it's not being done, it's being done, but sometimes we forget about it. If we look into the internet phenomena and how we use the internet in many ways, through the lens of, or developing all lines of thought, both about social science research and philosophy and many other ways of thinking the world, and we just apply all this work that has been done through many years, and we apply it to study the internet and try to understand what is happening in the internet, maybe we could get some more insights on, we could understand it better than if we try to explain it as if it was something completely new. That was on one side. And then there's another thing I would like to say, and it's that this can be a bit controversial, especially in a community like Global Voices. But I would like to say that digital is not always real. Or at least it's not real if it doesn't connect to the physical world. And by that I mean that we can get lost in these digital lives and forget about the physical world. And for me, the attention that we pay to what happened in other places, or the empathy that we feel for the people that are living these events in other places, and at the end of it, it's about the attention. You were saying it even. If attention is about interest, and interest is about empathy, and empathy requires an effort. So where does this effort come from? What motivates that effort? And it's all about emotions. And emotions have a lot to do with the physical world. And of course, we can feel things when we talk to someone on a chat, or when we see a documentary. And again, I'm saying this example because this is not something new. We were told that the TV was great because it allowed us to travel around the world. And I don't think it's the same to go somewhere, or travel and talk to people there, than to see a documentary about a place where people living in that place are talking to you through the screen. So I think that mediated experiences are not our experiences, of course, and I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not the same as experiences in the physical world. And there is a very interesting research group in Barcelona, it was created after the 15M protests, they are meant to be like the first Occupy style protests, and one of their research fields is about emotions, and they try to track how people were feeling during the protests, and they used, of course, the content shared on social media, but they study how the emotions on social media translated into emotions on the street or actions on the street, and the other way around, how the actions on the street and what was happening in the street translated into emotions expressed through social media. And I think I will finish just saying that one example of what I'm trying to say is that I don't think that global voices would be global voices if we were not able to meet face to face and touch each other. And that's all.
So, thank you. Stay up for a second. That's a fantastic provocation, because what you're suggesting is that for all this time we spend in digital spaces, maybe these problems of paying attention to the rest of the world, maybe these problems of empathy come down to this idea that what we really care about is what we can see and what we can feel and what we can touch. Is there any way we can use these digital tools to get people to make those new connections in the physical world, or is it just too much to ask of these tools?
I think there has to be something else. The internet is a great tool, but there has to be something else to use it. So I don't know, I guess it's a very individual thing. What motivates you to travel, what motivates you to talk to people from other places, it's not only other places, other physical places. Sometimes it's just about with people of that different social class. They may be your neighbors. So motivations are always a bit difficult to explain in generalize. But I do think that the internet can motivate that or facilitate that, but we have to wish to do it.
So maybe we have to use the online to get us to make these connections offline. To wrap us up on this session, I want to turn beyond our academic wisdom to one of our elder statesmen, and so I want to bring up last Abdoulaye Bah. Abdoulaye is a former UN executive. He's originally from Guinea-Conakry. He's now an Italian citizen. He speaks so many languages that I actually, I'm not entirely sure which one he's going to pick. I'm a little worried that it might be Bambara, because my Bambara is very rusty and I don't know that I can help. But Abdoulaye has been trying to get us to connect with one of the issues that for many of us has been sort of the most distant but also very pressing, which has been how West Africa has been coping not just with the disease of Ebola, but what Ebola has meant for societies. And I'm hoping that in part you can help us sort of understand these questions of whether the internet is bringing us together in thinking about that, but perhaps thinking more broadly. So,
sorry, I'm not really, because not living in Guinea, rather in Italy, I will not take the responsibility of talking about it as an expert. My life with internet is started very strangely. In fact, I missed my first appointment with internet. It was in 1996, yeah, after the second UN mission in Rwanda, after the genocide. I had among my friends, my colleagues, a very good friend from Canada. When we were at the end of the mission, when we were separating, he told me, I will give you my phone number. I said, okay. My address, I said, okay. And my internet address, I asked him, what is that? He told me internet, he tried to explain, but I told him, we don't have this in Europe, please don't bother me. Because in Europe, particularly in Italy, internet started later. Then in 1997, when I was home, already retired, one night I started looking on, we had already all what was necessary to have internet at home. I tried to see what it was. To open a file of an industry which was operating in Guinea, the internet informed me that it would take 20 minutes to open it. I said, okay. I launched it and went to take a coffee. Come back, it was still trying to open. I succeeded, but I was so enthusiastic that I tried something else. I went to sleep at 4 o'clock. Then I moved from Italy to Guinea. When they introduced the internet in Guinea, it was in 1998. I opened my address, my email, I created it, and one of the questions I asked to the assistant who was helping me to open it, but when I will be in Italy, will it work? Will I have to open another address? He said, no, wherever you go, you can use the same address. I said, wow. This is why I said that my first contact with the internet was very, very strange. Coming in closer times, I came back in Italy in 1999. Then I started writing articles for a newspaper in Guinea, a kind of Charlie Hebdo, because it is a satiric journal. Maybe not all of you know that in French-speaking countries in Africa, satiric newspapers are very, very common, and they are more popular and credible than the other media which are not using satire. I was writing it and using internet only to send my articles from here, from Rome to Conakry. But some time after, there was a very, very very serious political crisis in Guinea, and several people were killed. I didn't know how to react. I was concerned, but I didn't know how to react. It is at that time, Claire, I had already started cooperating with Global Voices. Claire told me, you can open a blog. But there was a problem. I didn't know what it meant, blog. She opened it for me, but I didn't know the importance of the password. So I didn't use the first blog she created. She put me in contact with somebody in Nairobi, an American lady who was starting something there on internet. But it didn't work because I was not, my mind was not at it at all. She created another one called Conakry Express, and we tried to cooperate together. Then my interest came to it slowly. After the crisis, I didn't know what to put on it, in it. I didn't want to do what many bloggers are doing. It means copying from the newspaper and putting in their blog, or taking news agencies, putting in their blog. Fortunately, there is a memorial of the victims of the first president regime, Sékou Touré, who amounted to 50,000 innocent people killed by this regime, and many those who were in jail but didn't die after they came out because they were all intellectuals. After they were freed, they wrote books. All these books are on internet. Many of them are freely available. I said, okay, these books are not known by the new generation. And the new generation is the fruit of the past regimes. They are all, instead of being thinking for future, they are all looking back to their tribal roots. And you can find people who are, when you speak with them in other subjects, they are very open-minded. But when it comes to speak about our country, they are all immediately, they, how you call it in English, se recroqueviller in French. So in order to have a common future, we have to change this mentality. I took myself on myself to put in this blog with my own introduction information coming from those people who have been in jail, from many ethnical tribes. So it is not only one tribe. In order to have them know the past of our country, in order to better understand and see the necessity to cooperate each other.
So you found a way to use the internet not just to connect between Guinea and the rest of the world. You've found a way to use the internet to connect through time.
Yeah.
You've been connecting from the generation of Guineans who survived Sékou Touré and those who were punished under Sékou Touré, and this new generation that doesn't know that tragic history. Do you believe that the internet can help Guinea in the future? Do you think this question of tribalism and parochialism, do you think the internet is going to make that better or worse for people who live in Guinea today?
You know, Ethan, the problem of violence is mostly due to ignorance. When you know that when you have the elements to judge how common our problems are the same, how common our beliefs, how common we need to be ourselves in order to develop our future, it is easier to understand each other. But we need to know what has been there. If we don't know, there will be always some kind of restraint from each of us. So it will not bring us to be to work together, but everybody will work for himself to cultivate his own ground.
So I think that's an incredibly optimistic thought, maybe for us to close with, is this idea that if we want to look for ways to get beyond conflict, starting by actually getting to know each other and trying to figure out how we can use this new tool to connect, and to connect not just in the digital world, but also in the physical world, to try to find ways of building these bridges to places that we don't hear about, like Madagascar, to build bridges within communities, like between Filipinos who are overseas and Filipinos who are here in the Philippines, to try to build connections to communities like the Aymara community. Let me just ask if we can get a quick round of applause for our panelists here who've been wrestling with this question of our own private internet. And let me actually encourage all of you at this point to give yourselves a hand. This has been an intense and long and really full day. You've been great about being here with us. Let's get a hand for everyone who's been here on stage or in the crowd today. Finally, let me see if we can get a hand for the crew that's done an amazing job of keeping this all up and running.